Hi everyone. These are trying times, aren't they? Scary times. So the first thing, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about regarding the meditations. The first is profiling. One of the things that we can do, trained empaths, is that we can use the long form of heart-centered remote viewing in order to become one with a designated target. So, for example, I've used this technique quite a bit when I attempt to connect with Vladimir Putin. And it has helped me to really see things from the perspective of the other. I think it's very hard to talk to Putin right now. When I go into his energy, when I put myself in the shoes of Putin, because the more the American negotiators are talking to me, it's actually having the opposite effect. I find myself, as Putin, getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And the source of this anger is that the Americans don't seem to acknowledge what they have done from my perspective as Putin. They have no understanding of what it's like to be on the other side, what has happened to Russia, what happened with the collapse of the Soviet Union. I'm at a point of anger. I feel so angry that the more the Americans are talking to me, the more infuriated I've become. So this is becoming a kind of anger that's almost bordering on the irrational. And that's a potentially dangerous situation. I know that the Russian military is now expanding their exercises in the Pacific, the Black Sea, the area that joins with the Atlantic. This is extremely aggressive behavior on the part of Putin. And because of this irrational anger that I feel as Putin, and because I feel so emboldened, it's going to take a lot to calm him down. I don't think that he is even open to talking at this point. And that's a concern. The feeling I have as Putin, wanting the Americans out of Syria, I found myself saying that we would take care of the problems in Syria with extremists. Assad and Russia would take care of the extremist problem that were put there because of the Americans. The Americans created it by funding with the Saudis, funding this extremism. This disaster was caused by America going into the region, and this is him talking, not me, and funding this kind of extremist insanity which has destabilized the area. Just leave. The best thing that America can do is to just leave. You have created a disaster. So America gets out of Syria and Russia, and Assad will take care of the problem. Indulging craziness. He sees the Americans as indulging the crazy. He's at a point of anger where he just, I think that it's gone past the point of negotiation for him. So that's a concern. There has to be some kind of mediation. This is something that I've talked about in the past, where there has to be some willingness to really see the other side of the argument in ways that might not be happening right now. Right now, it only seems to be putting fuel on the fire as far as Putin is concerned. And I'm very nervous for the West when I go into this energy, this anger. It's not good to, I'm concerned that Biden threatening or Biden being antagonistic at this point might not be the best approach, because of this feeling I have that I'm just so angry. This is the first thing I wanted to talk about in tonight's remote view. The second remote view I want to talk about has to do with the game plan going forward with the GOP, Ivanka Trump, Donald Trump, Giuliani, and all of the crazy shenanigans that's going on with January 6th and attempting to steal the election. It feels to me that the intellectuals, the people in power who always had an uncomfortable relationship with Trump have basically thrown him to the wolves. He has no political power anymore with the powers that be. They've basically indulged him as much as they're going to, and they're ready to throw him to the wolves. He never played nice with the other children. He was always difficult to control, but now he's not in office. They don't have to put up with him anymore. And so it's no problem for the GOP to destroy Trump, and I think that that's precisely what they intend on doing. When I put myself in the shoes of Ivanka using profiling, when I put myself in the shoes of being Ivanka Trump, I find myself asking for help from old allies, like my mother, because I was warned. I grew up knowing that my father had certain issues, and I got pulled into this, and now I can't go back to New York. I can't go back to my old life. And I can't go back to my family in the same way. So how do I come out of this? How do I get back to the community that I've lost? The only way to help her father at this point is to use the defense that he was not mentally well post-COVID. You know, we could argue that he was mentally ill prior to COVID, but if they can get him off on mental illness, that might be able to save him. Same with Giuliani. This looks like a type of, it's not just that these people are owned by the Russian mafia, the little Putin Island in New York that we've talked about, the disaster that is the Russian mafia in New York that's taken over Wall Street, taken over the construction businesses, etc. This is really the mess of what's happening in New York that Giuliani finds himself in the middle of. But at this point, the only way they're going to be able to get out of this is to argue mental illness, COVID brain, being elderly, senility. These things probably will save them going forward, but I don't feel in any way whatsoever with how this energy is plowing forward that the intellectuals of the Republican Party who never were comfortable with this president in the first place are going to tolerate much more of this. And so consequently, they're going to pull the plug on him. And as I've said before, I think the Trump organization is no more. It's going to be very difficult for Ivanka, but I do see her going back to New York. Anyway, that is tonight's remote. Thank you for listening, and good night.